We just got finished with the Zone 3 war inside of Call of Dragons, and I thought it was appropriate to bring in our R5 Volt to kind of give us an overview of the entire war. I put out some videos and live streams showing what was happening in real time, and a little overview of what happened when it was all done, but I wanted to get the big picture here today, so Volt is here with us to let us know literally what was going on, how come we were so successful in this war versus the first and second pass opening, and just kind of give us a look from the Blood family as to what went down, how it went down, and why we were so successful. So Volt, thanks for coming through today. I appreciate your time. Take us through this story and let us know what went down with this war from the start until the end.
Sure. Now, happy to be here. Thank you for having me back. I guess we'll start off and just give a quick shout out to Dragon and kind of everyone involved. This was a wild war, definitely the biggest in any city builder I've been a part of. And I had a blast, and I think everyone on both sides really had a lot of fun and a lot of fighting.
I agree.
So,
I will say, with all of that fighting, my T4s struggled through the fights, man. Struggled through the fights, but it was a lot of fun, and I did feel like even me with just T4s versus some monster T5s, it was still a lot of fun and great to be part of it. So yeah, take us through what happened in the beginning when the pass opened and some of the strategies we used, things that you may not mind sharing on YouTube.
sure thing. So initially our strategy was kind of centered around the fact that Dragon was throwing a lot of their heavyweight power up north, which meant we had to kind of meet them in part. What this meant was a really cool thing where we basically had all the top guns up on the north, and then we had a lot of their powerful subs versus our powerful secondary alliances BDE and BDV down in the south. And so it was very clear that Dragon's plan was to first try and beat us just head on. They wanted to take the field and just dominate our best with their best. And then if that didn't work, they were trying to cut our alliances using their other subs. And so BDE and BDV had a very important job of stalling out their secondary alliances from being able to cut our flags on the main battlefield and work from there, while BDK, BDM, and BDO had to go head-to-head with their top three alliances head-to-head. So strategy really was centered around the fights around really the area we called it the middle mag bridge was kind of our benchmark, and the river bridges. More bridge fighting was a big thing, and it was really about how could we push and hold those bridges early on.
I absolutely love the bridge fighting. It's a great way to like really force people to fight, and if you could hold your section there, if you could hold while they're coming over the bridge, you have a quite big advantage, in my opinion, with splash damage and all of that kind of stuff. I appreciate you being here, being able to shout out all of the family alliances, because like I said, you have that you see everything that's going on. Me, I'm pretty much more narrowed into what's going on in the Blood Moon Alliance. So I appreciate you coming through and sharing what's going on, how everyone from the Blood family contributed. So thanks for that.
Yeah, no problem. Like I said, I mean, it can look in one way that certain alliances are doing more, but each alliance has a role to play, and when alliances don't play that role, you're going to feel it a lot more. So I think a big factor for why things went so smoothly is each alliance knew its role and did its role so well. It allowed everyone to not really focus on the other alliances, because you didn't have to worry that they were needing additional help or anything like that. You could just continue on doing the job that you needed to do.
Yeah, that's a great point. And something that I noticed, you were talking about how we were taking the bridge and all that, and something I noticed inside of this war, and maybe I'm jumping ahead a little bit, I'm sorry if I am, but I noticed that as we were building and progressing, contrary to our past previous wars, our progress wasn't being negated in some of our off time. I don't know if that's because we had a lot of people that are staying on, able to defend that stuff, but we were continuously making progress through the zone every day and every night, which was really nice to see. And it was like, kind of like a power move that we weren't having to go in the negative.
Yeah. So it does jump a little bit ahead, but I think it touches on a big core point, which is we did this effort to consolidate fighters. We did this effort to really make sure that each alliance could maximize their effort and have 5 alliances fighting at 95% and during the uptime and 85% during the downtime, or whatever relative number, compared to 9 alliances fighting at 75% during their uptime and 50% of the downtime. So I think organizing as many active fighters as you can into a smaller group turned out to be a lot more effective than kind of having them spread out, because you could work a lot more with your teams while you're doing that, and you really get a lot more punching power at any one moment, which makes it easier to help defend.
That makes total sense. So what was the focus here of the entire war? Zone 3 opened. I mean, for people that don't know, that maybe haven't gotten to this yet inside of their server, maybe they're in a new server, what were we actually fighting for besides, you know, just your typical control of the entire zone?
Yeah, so for us, we were looking to really push them back out of the zone. Kind of what we had worked out with Dragon and our leadership was that we were going to make this a fight to burn out of the zone rather than a fight to see who could trench up and really like try and hold out as long as we wanted. So this was more of a push on both sides rather than a fight centered around holding and denying the strategic landmarks like the dragon or the magma demons or some of those other behemoths, which meant it was a lot more focused on making progress and preventing progress from being lost instead of just trying to back flag or create really like slow heavy choke points, which is kind of what we saw when we were fighting DH in zone 2, where it turned into this huge line of barricades and like multiple flags of just pure barricades.
I remember that. Those were tough to get through. Yep, I remember.
Yes. So for us in BDM specifically, our strategy was to go north over the river and fight DA and push them back to create pressure on DS, while BDO wanted to fight DS and DH both. And part of the reason behind that was DH's power is extremely organized in their tier 5 players, and their tier 5s are brutally strong, brutally efficient at killing our tier 4s. And what the idea, as I'm sure you are well aware, they are pretty relentless. But the idea behind it was, if we can put pressure on them and force DS to pull additional tier 5s off, BDO can really fight on an equal playing field with DS, especially if we're pulling off some of that pressure and DH combined. And so BDK's role in there was to kind of bridge the gap where it was needed. If more support was needed pushing flags down on the BDO side, they had the chance to do that. If more support was needed on the BDM side, either defending a push or helping us burn, they could do that. And I think one of the big things that we learned about flag denial, and one of the reasons we were able to kind of negate our loss in territory, besides just the incredible effort out of all of our alliances to spend the extra hours fighting and on, was kind of what we learned from DH. Before, we had kind of gotten into a mindset of barricading off flags and using keeps, and while keeps were brutally efficient, this war we learned how to handle them a lot better. Without proper coverage, a keep can kind of be a free buffet for a tier 5 player with an archer march to handle with. I think Funky had one report with almost 300,000 merits.
Oh my god.
Just cleaned an entire keep out by himself. 30 marches, he just sat his archer march right there and melted them. But what DH and DS did so well was basically an ROK tactic. They took cities, crowded them around the flags, and basically allowed a lot of city hopping, a lot of use of the Fang of Eshkari, a lot of these AoE artifacts to basically make it where you had to flood any flag with so many marches to maintain a presence to deny city hopping and city hitting through there. And we kind of, I think, utilized that a lot better to our advantage this time, which slowed down how much ground they could make on us during our downtime. And we did a lot better at preventing the same from happening. One of the things we started to do was, as we were getting ready to burn flags, we'd proactively get our marches spread out to prevent people teleporting in, deny some of that area for building and stuff like that, and basically force the flag fights to turn from city hopping and like kind of non-stop pestering to more they have to actually mount a push and push us off.
I get it, and I hear what I'm hearing you say a lot here is that we were learning, And it's worth noting that this is the first time a Zone 3 is really open for us. I know that you only really started playing when the game launched globally as well. So there's a lot of learning that's going on right now because the game is so new. This isn't something that we've experienced season after season and kind of come to expect. So,
Yeah.
and this is stuff that people that haven't been able to experience this before can kind of learn from what we're experiencing from watching on live streams or things like this, and kind of get an idea of what they're going to experience when these zones open up for them as well.
Absolutely. I think one of the biggest things for us, especially in our Zone 2 to Zone 3 fights, was bananaing. So I don't think any of your viewers will probably have heard the word if they weren't listening to our chat, but I'm sure you've heard it quite a bit.
Yes.
Open field fights are really about getting good, for lack of a better term, banana shapes. You want the curves, and you kind of want to force your enemies into compact formations because you'll eat them alive with the AoE. It was something we did not do a particularly great job of Zone 2, and it was something we did a really great job of in Zone 3, which allowed us to even take fights with smaller, not necessarily the full force, but small forces from DS even. It allowed us to bridge our gap a lot more with tier 4s to tier 5s. Besides the fact that I think we just had a lot more sustain. Like you said, we learned that having more troops matters a little bit more than necessarily having the max level tech. By the time we were getting ready for Zone 3, if you had the choice between putting universals into troops or tech, we were actually recommending some people do troops, because if your one march hits hard, but you can only bring your one march out twice before you need to wait for free healing, you start to lose the field presence.
Of course, you got to be out there to fight, and the more that you could fight, whether it be you have, the helmets to instantly heal, or just tons of troops that you can keep sending out in the battlefield, the more damage you could do. It's pretty common sense when you think about it, but it's funny that it took Zone 2 and that whole experience to really understand how it works inside of this game for Zone 3.
Yes, and I think that it was kind of all of these things that we had spent a lot of time learning. We improved shot calling, and it wasn't perfect. We definitely had some learning experiences with how to pull troops back from a position. We got caught out of position one time really bad and ended up just giving away free marches. But that's part of that process. Is we're learning, we're continuing to evolve our strategies. But I think all of these learnings that we took out of Zone 2, the consolidations, the fact that we could support each other when needed. If that meant Oath could chase down DS marches that were coming to us, or if we could put pressure and force DS to pull marches off, put us in a position where we were able to minimize the downtime loss, and we were able to maximize the uptime pushes. And I think that's kind of what it is, and we got the ball rolling, and part of that is the confidence. I think we took those first fights, we started to win some of them, even despite our losses, and people saw that we can do this, and that's part of it too. Is you gotta have members that want the win, and I think that we showed up ready to want it, and we didn't let ourselves get discouraged. And coupled with everything, led us to where we are now, which was being able to successfully burn them out of the zone.
And what does that mean for people that weren't there, that don't know what that means? We burned them out of the zone. What do you mean by that?
That means that we have complete control of Zone 3. There's not a single flag left in Zone 3 belonging to the Dragon family. And they officially have called that fight as well, letting us know that we have officially won it, and they won't be pursuing any more major fighting for the zone.
Got it. And I mean, I understood what it meant, and but a lot of people probably didn't. Now, something that you mentioned earlier in the video that I want to mention here again is the Dragon family was pretty cool throughout this whole thing. Like, you're at battle with these people, but it really felt this time around like a pretty friendly battle. Like, there was nothing that was like, from what I saw, maybe things were different in the back, but it was nothing like that was dirty going on, and it was just a really fun experience, and it was cool. And I think it's important, because if we ever get to a point of, server versus server or kingdom versus kingdom, these are going to be our allies in battles like that. And it was nice to see that we could battle them and fight for this zone, and then in the future, maybe we're going to have to work alongside of them and fight other servers, which is, well, it's going to be pretty brutal if you ask me, because we have a really strong server. I don't know if there's any servers stronger right now than server 32.
It's going to be pretty crazy, considering we have almost exact opposite downtimes, which theoretically means that as a server, we don't have a single downtime.
Right.
It's pretty daunting, but no, and I think that that's a big shout out to a lot of the BDO leadership and all the leadership on both sides. I think they realized that this is an important fight, but there are more important things for the health of both of our groups long term in the game. We want to build a competitive, we want to build the best fighting kingdom possible in Call of Dragons. And part of that means in the future, like you said, if server v server is the new norm, working together to create a pretty monstrous of server to fight for anyone.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea, and it's kind of planning for the future while learning the game, progressing the game, enjoying the game, and just kind of, making the best out of it. So with this being said right now, I don't know what kind of agreements were made, because I know that there's discussions between alliances and all that. So the dragon, everyone talks about the dragon. It's called Call of Dragons, but you never really see a dragon. What does this mean, us owning server, the third section of the map? Do we own that dragon? Is that going to be something that we have control over?
So we're still kind of working out maybe the final details of the full agreement, but we are working to basically accommodate dragon, and based off of the results of the previous zones kind of mixed in with the result of this zone, we're going to come to an agreement on how we can split that in a way that's fair for both groups, because Dragon did win the zone 1 and 2 fight, and there should be some weight given to that because they stood by their agreements in that. So we'll be working out the final details, and I might be able to speak a little bit more once I make sure everything is 100% ironed out and I'm not jumping the gun. But we're working in a way that all the top contributors, and we can make sure that everyone gets rewarded on the server, because like you said, we never know what other servers coming at us might bring, and continuing to build that good relationship and as strong a server as we can is really the goal.
Yeah, I love that too, because, again, we're all going to be working together in the end. So I guess to sum things up right here, let's give a little love to the entire Dragon and to the entire Blood family that were part of this and made it such a great experience. Also, for someone that is looking for some tips on how we were so successful here, could you just give like one thing, which is, I know there's a lot more than one thing, but give us one tip that you could say as an R4 was one of the leading things as to why we were able to be successful this time around. Was it that we worked together well as a team? We were all on comms? Was it something about some of our whales that were able to really play a nice role? Or was it just that over time, which, I mean, really it was only 45 days since the server opened, we were able to catch up in power to the Dragon family, and we had a lot more T5s than we had in previous Zone 1 and Zone 2 encounters. So give me one piece of juice for everyone that's watching.
Wow. Well, you did hit, I think, like all the major ones, but...
Well, what's the main one?
If I had to say one that I think, to me personally, and maybe some other R4s or R5s think differently, I think it was the communication. I think it was the communicate on both ends. When I say communication, I mean R4s and shark callers making good calls, but also the members non-stop being in Discord, non-stop working with the leaders and working to make sure they're following those orders. I think we were able to turn around a lot of fights that could have been losses by listening to where we're turning around at, getting good shot calls in, assuming proper formations, and being able to work with our allies. And if you don't have good communication between each alliance's leaders to their members in the fights, and also between the different alliances to support each other, you're not going to be able to pull off some of the riskier plays that we made and turn around some of these fights that we had a good chance at losing it.
Yeah, I'll tell you, it was pretty impressive. I'd log into the game, we're ready to sit down and play, stream, or whatever. Go into Discord, there's like 200 people. It's like those chats were incredibly long, and the really cool thing is it was silent. You had the leaders leading, and then when a call was made in the game, if you're being told to retreat, to banana out, or do whatever, you literally just see everyone starting to do it. So it was really cool how well the group was working together. It was impressive to see you guys kind of leading the fight as well, talking about people from all of the Blood families, listening to them on the comms, and just kind of have the leaders in there taking control. I think that was, I had a feeling you were going to say that the communication and all working together was the main thing. But it really is important. And for those of you that are maybe new to Call of Dragons, have never experienced this game is not a game that you dive into solo and just farm up your base. This is a game that's going to be very diplomatic. You're going to be working with a bunch of people. And even after Zone 3, we took control of, there's still discussions being had with the other dragon or with the dragon family, so that it could be fair amongst everyone, because we want to have, you know, essentially peace in the server for when we do have, you know, battles in the future with other servers. But of course, we're always ready to fight, because that's what this game is about. It's a kingdom builder. We're here to fight, not farm, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. Strong alliances are a big thing about it. Even now, we're looking to probably consolidate and recruit more members in the future. So I'll give the obligatory plug. If you want a blood family place to be, I'm a little biased in thinking that Moon's the best place. So we're always looking for more members who are willing to communicate well, have fun, and join us in our fights.
All right, now, so I want to add on to that right now, because in the bottom of the description of every single one of my videos is our Discord server. Anyone can join. You could reach out to someone in the Discord server that's an admin or something, and you could be in discussion with an R4 or an R5 about joining the family. What are a few requirements besides being active? What are a few requirements of people that we need? Is there a power requirement? Can someone that's been playing the game for a week join the family? We have a lot of new players that are really interested in being with us. So what are some of the requirements? Of course, people need to be on server 32, and you can't transfer to server 32 for another 20 days or so, but that's going to come and go very soon if people want to come over.
Sure. Yeah, so once the servers merge, players will actually be able to join alliances inter-server before the migration kicks in, which is at the end of Season 2. So that is an option. At this point, we are looking. One of the things here is activity. We are aiming to be an extremely active alliance. We are not a super high spender alliance, so you don't have to be a whale or a kraken. We're looking for players at this point, probably for our specific needs, that are tier 4. And it kind of depends. Like, we don't have a set, say, power. But I think at this point, being close to tier 4, 4.5 is the benchmark we're looking for. We have other subs where members can continue to develop, but someone who's active, willing to listen and be in Discord is a huge part of it. And just someone who's very passionate about trying to push hard. We're aiming to be the most competitive group in the game. That's true for Blood Oath, and that's true for Blood Moon.
Yeah, I agree. And I would say it's probably even true if you were to talk to some R4s and R5s and the other blood branches of the family, they'd probably say the same for theirs as well. So Volt, I really appreciate you coming on and doing this to kind of sum this up. I think we should do this in the future. Whenever we have a big war that lasts for days, maybe you and I just hook up and kind of talk about what went down, so we can get a really good overview from, you know, the management being you. So thanks for coming through and spending the time and kind of sharing everything with everyone today.
No, that sounds like a great plan. I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to talk. Especially happy to be on the winning end this time as well.
It does feel good to win, I'll tell you that. It does feel better than the other two zones did. But everyone, I hope you enjoyed the video. Now you have a good scope of what went down in the war, and there will always be more wars to come. So make sure you subscribe to the channel so you can learn more of how to play the game, keep updated on what's going on in our servers, and just what's new inside of Call of Dragons. Thanks again, Volt, and we will see all you guys in tomorrow's video.